Hi, I'm Joe Brennan and I'm here today to talk to you about the music of Doctor Who. Not the Murray Gold stuff or any of the instrumental soundtracks, but the underappreciated art of music based on Doctor Who. It has a long and rich history and is something that I feel should make a return, and I'd like to dive into why. When the series, and particularly the Daleks, took the country by storm in 1963, everyone wanted a piece of that pie, and musicians were no exception. The first Novelty Doctor Who song to be released came about as early as it could have, in December of 1964. Considering it was a Christmas song and the Dalek serial had only wrapped up in the February of that year, that's a pretty good turnaround. So for that reason, I'm gonna spend my Christmas with a Dalek gets a few points. This haste may explain the couple of out-of-place details about Daleks in the lyrics, like their supposed chromium-plated heads or big lead toes that you can hang stockings from. And I just don't think that the staccato monotone of Dalek voices translate very well into the musical world. Combine that with some annoying 60s sci-fi sound effects and vocalist Sue Smith doing a creepy baby voice, and you've got a single that lands somewhere between mildly irritating and nightmare fuel.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Happy Christmas!
Happy Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
To you.
To simultaneously cash in on the Dalek mania that was sweeping the nation and avoid more headaches from screeching robots on the radio, a few artists released instrumental Dalek records with incredibly loose connections to the show. There's one by the Earthlings called Landing of the Daleks, but the only reference to Daleks was in a Morse code SOS that led to the song being banned by the BBC. And there's another one called Dance of the Daleks that is pretty much completely unrelated in all ways except its name. It's the 60s equivalent of just writing a funky beat and calling it Thanos' Victory Royale or something else that's popular. And how Daleks dance without tripping over those big lead toes is a mystery to me. In 1965, we got the big screen debut of these frankly stupid looking robots in Doctor Who and the Daleks. The film featured a score by Malcolm Lockyer, who was responsible for the release of a couple of tie-in singles. Responsible for makes it sound like these records were criminal, but they're absolutely fine. One is just music from the soundtrack, but Who's Who is an endearing little song about Doctor Who himself, sung by Roberta Tovey, who played the much younger version of Susan that they had in the films. Funnily enough, a child singing like a child is much less disturbing than an adult singing like a child.
Who's who? Who's who?
Well, Doctor Who, of course, he's quite at home in a big spaceship or sitting on top of a horse.
Continuing this trend of Who-related pop songs being released by actors associated with the property, Fraser Hines, the actor for Jamie Best Companion Ever McCrimmon, decided to become a music sensation in 1967, with a number of songs where he sings in character, accent and all. The first was a song written by his brother that never got released.
I'm the pride of the Highlands, that's true. I do all the traveling in a telephone booth, but I'm a time traveler, honey, and I can't get away from your love.
I will make no guesses as to why this didn't see the light of day for 32 years. There was also Jamie's Away in His Time Machine, which has still never seen the light of day. But then he had one written by some surprisingly accomplished songwriters from the 1960s, Barry Mason and Les Reed, who were behind hits like It's Not Unusual and Delilah. The result is a certified club banger called Who's Doctor Who? Despite being arguably the greatest song of all time, it failed to chart. I honestly don't understand it any more than you do. It's been in my head from the moment I heard it. Let's fast forward to 1972 and it's time for some Jon Pertwee, who released a Doctor Who song that is part spoken word poetry, part rap, part glob glob gab galap.
I cross the void beyond the mind, the empty space that circles time. I see where others stumble blind.
I am the yeast of thoughts and minds.
This single is sometimes referred to as I Am the Doctor, which these days makes it a lot harder to find, but it's officially called Who is the Doctor? And if you're wondering wasn't that the name of the other song, then you're probably thinking of Who's Doctor Who, or Who's Who, or this compilation album from the year 2000 that features all three songs called Who is Doctor Who? In 1982, Australian country music trio Bullamakanka released Doctor Who Is Gonna Fix It, sometimes called the Ballad of Doctor Who, which seems to often fall under the radar when people talk about this kind of thing. And that's a shame, because it's one of the most fun and unique records of the lot, and it's aged a lot better than most of them.
Back into the future, the TARDIS travels time with his beautiful assistant and his trusty mate K9.
I really get a kick from the moments in these songs when they incorporate the main theme. I don't think I'll ever get tired of it, which is good because it happens in pretty much all of them. As the 80s progressed, the world became a bit less Doctor Who mad, as did certain people at the Beeb. BBC One controller Michael Grade seemed to have had a pretty personal beef with the show, and placed it on an 18-month hiatus in 1985, which was a pretty big deal at the time. A lot of people just thought it was too long to wait. As a way to, I don't know, raise awareness of the show, superfan Ian Levine decided to make a charity single, resulting in Doctor in Distress, probably the most famous, or infamous, song based on Doctor Who. There were rumours at the time that the Band-Aid-style supergroup was going to include people like Elton John and the Village People. Instead, the bottom of the barrel was thoroughly scraped. There were a couple of recognisable names, but it was mostly C-listers, and some Doctor Who cast members, like Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, Anthony Ainley, and Nicholas Courtney. The most notable thing about it may just be the fact that the synth music in the background was played by Hans Zimmer. I don't even think it's that bad. It's definitely an earworm, and it's commendable that all the money went to charity, although it didn't really make any. Much like Fraser Hines' Who's Doctor Who, its genius went unrecognised and it failed to chart. It was panned by practically everyone. Even Ian Levine said it was an absolute balls-up fiasco, and called it pathetic and bad and stupid. The BBC considered it too poor quality to be played on the radio, so it was a success all round. Since its release, it has developed a lot more love and support among the fanbase, be it ironic or genuine. 5 Who fans even did a cover/rewrite of it in 2016 when we found out there wasn't going to be a series that year, and it was great. After the hiatus in the late 80s, ratings and public perception of Doctor Who were, let's just say, less than ideal. By 1988, the show was slowly marching towards its cancellation a year later. It seems like this would have been the absolute worst time to release a song about the show, but for some reason, an electronic band called the KLF decided to make one under the name The Time Lords. As a sort of celebration/commentary on the trashy nature of pop, Doctor in the TARDIS was soaked in irony. And everyone was in on the joke. The lyrics were hilariously simple, and the music combined a number of iconic parts of British culture. And the funniest part of the whole thing is that it was a hit. It sold over 1 million copies, got to number 1, and made the KLF loads of money, which they then went on to burn. At a time when the show was at a sort of low point, the Doctor Who novelty song reached an unimaginable height. On paper, it seems absurd, but the song is so much fun that you can understand it. But it didn't spawn a new wave of novelty Doctor Who singles. In fact, it marked the end, for a bit. The show's wilderness years extended to music as well. With the ostensible death of the show in 1989, it was a sad time for people who exclusively listened to songs about one specific science fiction series. There was the odd parody here and there, and supposedly a band called the Bessies who toured the conventions and released a few songs, including the Time Rotor Blues, but it's very hard to find any information on that. And despite the fact the show came back in 2005, there was a surprising lack of banging tunes written about the new series, whether that's official tie-ins or fan records. The only thing I could find from that time was this Green Day edit by Party Ben called Doctor Who on Holiday, which samples the Doctor Who theme, some lines from Genesis of the Daleks, George Bush, and Doctor in the TARDIS, and I actually really like it. And then, in one of the rare moments where he wasn't inappropriately exposing himself to everyone he could find, John Barrowman revived a tradition that had not been seen in this century, and joined the Companions Who Have Done a Doctor Who Song Hall of Fame. The Doctor and I was sung from the perspective of Captain Jack Harkness, all about the Doctor, and was based on The Wizard and I from Wicked. He initially just sung it on his tour in 2009, but then released it later as part of his album. And I do have to begrudgingly say that it's always been a guilty pleasure, although some parts have aged better than others.
When people see me, they will scream.
But John Barrowman wasn't the only companion from the new series to perform a musical theatre parody to do with the show. No, surprisingly, he wasn't even the only one to do a musical theatre parody of a song made famous by Idina Menzel. Although not released anywhere, Arthur Darvill did a cover of Let It Go on Radio 1 about his experience after leaving the show.
You need to know I've my own story. I'm not Rory. Let it go, let it go. I'm not in Doctor Who anymore.
There was also an odd little music video called The Ballad of Russell and Judy, based on the Victoria Wood song, that was part of the rap party for the RTD era. It told the story of Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner's journey of bringing back and running Doctor Who. It stars John Barrowman, David Tennant and Catherine Tate. It's pretty funny and charming, although again, some things have aged poorly.
I can't block out, please lock out, images of Johnny B getting his cock out. I can't do it tonight.
So far that's been it for official songs about the show, except for a nice little Blue Peter rap that neatly summarises Doctor Who history, with a good amount of detail on each incarnation. And also this track by Nerf Herder, the band behind the Buffy theme song, that accompanied the trailer for the series on Disney XD.
Who's gonna save the day when the Daleks are on their way? What you gonna do?
It's obnoxious, but I like it. It feels like a modernisation of those classic records. It's one of the few modern tracks to actually be released as a single. The charts have remained relatively Who-less since 1988. In 2012, Tujamo and Plastic Funk did a song called Who, which had absolutely nothing to do with the show. But then it was re-released a couple of years later with extra vocals from Sneakbo and a new title. The word Doctor was added before Who. Its relevance to Doctor Who remains pretty minimal, but it's notable for its name and the fact it did quite well. The group to properly revive the Doctor Who song genre was Chameleon Circuit. After the popularisation of wizard rock for short, which was music about Harry Potter, these guys decided to do some trock, Time Lord rock. They released 2 albums, one in 2009 that was just the name of the band, and another one 2 years later called Still Got Legs, which is a pretty clever name for a second album. They're probably the most well-known group when it comes to Doctor Who music. They were quite a big deal for a while there, especially around the 50th anniversary, with radio appearances and a music video that was filmed on the actual TARDIS set. Since then it's come out that band members Ed Bland and Alex Day are pretty awful people. So that body of work has become rather tainted, and obviously the band isn't going anymore. It's hard to say whether they would be anyway. I don't really want to celebrate them, but their place in Doctor Who music history is important, if you could describe any of this as important. Devo Spice, an American songwriter and rapper from the Dr. Demento radio show, released an album called I Am the Doctor, featuring a song about each of the incarnations, including one called Who is the Doctor? It's like they're trying to make my life harder with this stuff. Putting that to one side, it's an admirably ambitious project that features some pretty funny lyrics, but the album also features some classic Doctor Who cast members, which warms my heart as a fan of those tracks of yesteryear. Until very recently, I had no idea it existed, but I'd recommend checking it out.
Fight the Autons, Centaurians, Silurians, and the randomized warriors, the entity, sea devils.
Thanks to YouTube, it has become so much easier to get your Doctor Who music out there, which is obviously a blessing and a curse. It's led to so many songs about the show. And there's such a variety. There's an epic rap battle of history featuring a man playing the 10th Doctor who's clearly never seen or heard David Tennant. There's a rather rude song by Aurelio Voltaire called It's Bigger on the Inside. Yeah. And there's also the Doctor Who musical experience, which is really fun, and not the same thing as Doctor Who the musical, I swear to God. But that's even better. It's genuinely great. It's cute, it's fun, and it's a fully original song that perfectly translates the vibes of the show into a new musical theatre format. And they did a couple of follow-ups. It's a perfect example of the creativity that can shine on YouTube. It's right up my alley. And then there's this.
I'm gonna stop these Daleks, screwdriver in my pocket. I cruise time and space in a TARDIS, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah, the most common type of Doctor Who music on YouTube is parody. It's hard to overstate how big parodies were on this website at the start of the last decade. And if you combine that with the boom in the show's international popularity at around the same time, you've got yourself a pretty endless source of Doctor Who parodies.
Tick-tock goes the clock, you know fixed points can't be stopped.
There was a Good Time rewrite called Through Time, a spin on Wide Awake called Regenerate, Call Me Maybe became Time Travel Maybe, and there was an uncomfortable Blurred Lines parody called Timelines that I won't subject you to. The most famous one probably has to be the Hillywood show's Rocky Horror parody. It's wonderful, with fantastic production value. And who could forget when 5 Who fans repurposed Renegade Master to be about the Renegade Master we all know and love? I certainly can't, and I've tried.
Killing all the people back Once again, it's a renegade master, psycho killer with the ill behaviour.
This stuff is history in itself. A few of those videos came out over a decade ago. They were all, how do I say this nicely, of their time. It's easy to be dismissive or look back and cringe, but I think you really have to admire the creativity and confidence it takes to make something like this and put yourself out there. It was an era of the fandom and the internet that brought a lot of people a lot of joy, even if it's not a time that I'm overly keen to return to. The YouTube song parody scene has died down gradually since 2012 across the board. Thank God. But occasionally you'll still get a new one. The Hamilton one is quite popular, Crispy Pro did a fun Taylor Swift one back when Jodie was cast, but overall there's not much Doctor Who music being made right now, parody or otherwise. Doctor Who Poop does the odd fun remix of lines from the show, occasionally having an impact on the show itself. The most recent example of a Doctor Who song I've found was from February this year, with a parody of Michael Jackson's Bad called Chibnall Bad by Billy Edwards.
Cause Chibnall bad, he's bad. Chibnall bad, come on, he's bad, Chibnall bad.
And we're all caught up, I think. I'm sure there have been songs I've missed. Let me know in the comments if there are. But it seems like this is an aspect of the show's fandom and culture that's gone away for now. But it's one that I'd like to see make a return, in whatever form that takes. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at what I think is a pretty interesting topic. I'd love to know what your favourite Doctor Who songs are, so let me know in the comments. Be specific because, as we know, they've literally all got the same name. I've put a link to every song I've spoken about in the description. Remember to subscribe and share. Follow me on Twitter, a link is in the description, along with ones to my Patreon, Twitch and new Discord server. See you in 2 weeks. I love you lots.
They all say who